class. It's good to see you again. Welcome to this Friday YouTube session. Hope you're doing well. Don't forget, you also have a test this weekend. Hopefully you're watching this video before you take the test as you were advised. It will help you do better on the test. Trust me. And if you've already taken the test and now you're watching this, sorry about that. Can't go back and retake the test. So hopefully you did follow the instructions. So we do have some lecture in this YouTube video, and then we're going to be talking a little bit about your assignments moving forward. So keep with us all the way to the end. We're about the midpoint of the class is exactly right today. From here on out, we are going to be super busy. So keep up with the videos, keep up with our Tuesday classes. If you have any questions or concerns at any time, please send me an email. Please text me. You can call me. You hopefully all have my number. We should be good moving forward. So let's jump right into our PowerPoint. Let's see, from current slide. Ta-da! And we are now talking about outlining your speech. Outlining your speech is basically organizing your speech in a very specific way. But in doing so, you are writing your speech from very beginning to very end. You're just doing it in such an organized way that when you're done, you're ready to go. You can start practicing. You're good. Everything that you need in this speech is right there. So, two kinds of outlines for us to talk about. First kind is a preparation outline. A preparation outline is a detailed outline developed during the speech development process that includes all the parts of your speech. Basically, the preparation outline is going to be, when it's done, your speech right there in that organized fashion. So when you're developing your preparation outline, you are putting your speech together from beginning to end. The second kind of outline that you're going to be dealing with in this class, and hopefully moving forward with any speech you do, is the speaking outline. The speaking outline is an outline of just phrases and hints that are meant to jog a speaker's memory, and they're used when you're actually giving a speech. You don't want to basically read your speech when you're giving a speech. That's called a manuscript speech. And sometimes if you have a really detailed and involved, complicated project that you're working on and you have to give a speech about it, you might want to read it just to make sure everything is out there. But for the majority of cases where you're doing public speaking, you do not want to read your speech. It comes off like you're reading your speech, like you're really not sure what you're doing, and you're just gonna sit and read to like you're reading a story to everybody. It's not fun to watch. It's not fun to do. Best way to do it is to practice your preparation outline, the speech you develop there, so much that all you need when you're actually giving your speech, when you're actually presenting, are just words and phrases that will jog your memory, and then maybe some hints as to the kind of delivery style you need to be working on. So moving forward, preparation outlines start at the top of the page with a specific purpose and your central idea listed at the top. Now for our cases, you will also put at the top your YouTube link. That's where you'll be posting at least your first speeches so that we can watch them. I can watch them especially. And you won't have to upload such a big file. You'll just send me the link. I'll watch it on your YouTube channel. We'll be good. It contains also your introduction, the body of your speech, all the transitions, your conclusion, and your bibliography. They're all labeled so that anyone reading your outline knows exactly, okay, here's the introduction, here's the body of the speech, these are all the transitions between all the main points, here's the conclusion, and here are the works cited in the bibliography. They are all specifically labeled. The main points and all the supporting evidence of those main points are listed as full sentences within the outline. What did I hear? Full sentences. I don't want to see phrases. I don't want to see words that kind of explain what's going on. That's your speaking outline. I don't care about that. Whatever you put in your speaking outline is supposed to help you, and that's awesome. But your preparation outline contains everything you mean to say in your speech in complete sentences. Now, there might be some times when your speech might have a phrase or two as part of your vernacular. You know, especially if you're giving a special occasion speech and someone you're talking about, for example, has a special phrase that they say all the time. In that case, you might not give it a full sentence for that. But for the majority of your speeches and the majority of the sentences in your speeches, they are going to be full sentences. So when you're turning in your preparation outline to me, make sure all of these things are in there. One, at the top, your YouTube link, your specific purpose, your central idea, listed exactly like we've talked about in class. The introduction, the body, all the transitions between the main points, the conclusion and bibliography, they have to be labeled. I'm looking for that. And then all of your main points, all of the supporting evidence underneath those main points listed as sentences. Sentences have subjects and verbs. So I'm going to be looking for that. Oh, and punctuation. That's always good with sentences too. So I am looking for grammar in these. And in fact, your last preparation outline for your last speech counts as your QEP project, which is meant to test your writing ability. So that is going to be important. Your bibliography, and we haven't really talked too much about bibliographies, but I'm hoping and I'm assuming that in high school you did have to write a report, paper of some sort where you needed to put in a bibliography. So I'm hoping this is not new to you, but you will need a bibliography at the end of your preparation outline. It contains all the source materials you used with the information, all the information you put in your speech, all your source materials need to be listed in your bibliography, listed with their proper MLA citations. MLA is the style we use here at this college level. If you're not familiar with MLA, I want you to Google MLA bibliography citations. You will find a lot of resources that will tell you how to list those citations. And in fact, just look for the Purdue Writing Lab because they have a great explanation, a great section. And in fact, on those pages, you can find everything you need to do to cite books, online sources, magazines, newspapers, whatever you need. So look for the Purdue Writing Lab when you're Googling MLA bibliography citations. If you've done this before and you're well used to putting together a bibliography, awesome. You know, then you're ahead of the game. But if you do need to look up some materials, make sure you do so. You know what? I'm going to stop and I'm going to change. I'm going to show you what a preparation outline looks like. I almost went too far. Let me open up my example outline. Kapow. So this is what a sample preparation outline will end up looking like. I want your outline to look like this. At the top, like we always do, I want your name, I want your class, the date that you put this together, and then remember your YouTube link. It's going to go right there. You can just copy it from your YouTube channel, paste it right in there. I'm good to go. Put YouTube link by it. Awesome. So remember at the very top, I mentioned we're going to put your specific purpose and your central idea. And look here, it's right there. This is a speech that's an informative speech about chili peppers. Exciting speech. And you can easily, if I were reading this preparation outline, I would know what to expect in your speech. So our specific purpose, to inform, informative speech, my audience about chili peppers. Very basic. The central idea, remember, it's a full sentence that tells you what the speech is going to be about. Chili peppers are a spicy food with an interesting history and many other uses besides eating. So if you read that, you know this speech is going to be about chili peppers, how they're a spicy food, how they have an interesting history, and there are many other uses besides eating. Bada boom, bada bang. Anything that goes with outside of that scope of information about chili peppers does not go into this speech. So all of our sections are labeled and they are centered on the page. So introduction, pow. If you go down here, the body starts right there, the same way. We have how many main points? Looks like 3 main points in this particular speech, and they all start with a Roman numeral. So Roman numeral 1, it's about History. Remember our sentence when we talked about the central idea? We have the history. We talk about why they're spicy in main point 2. Main point 3, if you come in contact, here's how to counteract its effects. And I think, 4 main points, excuse me. They're often used, the other ways that they're used besides the food, in personal protection products as well as for medical purposes. Our 4 main points. And as a matter of fact, remember in our introduction, we always state our central idea in a way that lets the audience know what we're going to be talking about. If we go up to our introduction, all of the main points of our introduction, the sentences that you're going to be saying, are Roman numerals. And the last one tends to be the one where we explain the speech. Today, I would like to share with you what I have learned about the history of chili peppers, why they can be so spicy, main point 2, what to do when you consume a too hot pepper, 3, and then some of the ways that peppers are used other than in food, 4. So we've got those 4 sections listed and explained to the audience. So if they're watching your speech, they know you're going to be talking about those 4 topics. And that's also how you're going to be organizing your speech. So you're going to start with your main points. As you gather materials, remember, you're going to be finding things that deal with those 4 main points. And information you find that has to do with any one of them, great, it goes into that section. Anything that does not have to do with those 4 things, it goes out. If I find a cool recipe for salsa that involves a lot of chili peppers, that's not one of the things I'm going to talk about in my speech. It's not one of my main points. It doesn't go in my speech. That's saved for another chili pepper speech day, in which that would be a main point, not here. So we've got our introduction that basically, remember, we get people's attention, we explain our connection to our topic, why it's interesting to us, we get people's interest going, and then we explain to the audience what they're going to be hearing with the central idea written as a sentence. Then we go right into the body, and all of the main points are Roman numerals. Roman numeral 1 for the history, Roman numeral 2 for why it's spicy, how that works, Roman numeral 3, what you do if you come into contact with a pepper, and then Roman numeral 4, chili peppers used in ways apart from eating. So then as you're studying, researching, getting all the information, all of the supporting materials are going to be organized under those main points. The main points of the main points, the more solid statements that you're going to be saying about those main points are going to form your A and your B. If you've done outlining before, you know you always have a Roman numeral, and then a capital letter, and then a regular number. And if you go down to the 4th level, then it's lowercase letters. But that's basically it. Everything has to refer to the main point, but it forms like nesting dolls, in that the information always has to link to what's higher than it. So, for example, in our Roman numeral 1, where we're talking about the long and fascinating history of chili peppers, we're going to be explaining what they are, but about the history as well. And so we have, look, an A and a B, and those are the 2 main things we're going to be talking about with relation to what they are in the history. First thing is what they are. The scientific name of the chili pepper is capsicum. It's different from black pepper, which scientific name is Piper nigrum. So in case you are confused about, well, what about black pepper? That's not a chili pepper, and we're going to explain that. So the information that kind of verifies that sentence goes underneath that sentence in the 1 and the 2, right there. Our B sentence is the second part that explains our main point about the history. And we say that chili peppers did not become known to the rest of the world until after Columbus came to the Western Hemisphere in the 1490s. Remember, we do cite verbally where the information we got came from. And pretty much all the information in this Roman numeral 1 came from the Cambridge World History of Food, which is a book. So we're going to say, as stated in the Cambridge World History of Food, within 50 years after Columbus returned to Spain with sample plants, chili peppers were being grown in coastal areas from Africa to Asia. And then from there, they spread around the globe. So we've got our B sentence, which is about the history. And then 1 and 2 are just some extra details that explain where that information came from, but also kind of flesh out the topic. Honestly, if I were doing this speech, I would have moved the citation closer to the beginning. Just right off the top, you want to say, here's where my information came from. So chili peppers have a long and fascinating history. As stated in the Cambridge World History of Food, the scientific name, just get that out of the way. In this case, they put it in the B section. You can do that. Honestly, I prefer to hear the citations up front because it makes your information afterward sound like you know where it came from. It's from a reliable source and not just out of your brain. Nonetheless, for the purposes of this example, it's fine. So between each main point, you're going to put a sentence that helps you move from one point to the next point, and that's your transition. Transitions are listed in the middle with a little parentheses and a thing that says transition. It's pretty simple. And you're going to say, in this case, now that we know a little bit about the history of chili peppers, 1 point, let's see why they can put such a fire in your belly. And look, we're being creative with the writing here to try to keep the interest going in the topic. We go to main point 2, and the pleasure and pain involved with eating chili peppers comes from a chemical called capsaicin. So anything having to do with the spiciness of peppers and how the spicy reaction happens, that goes into this main point. Your most important information, remember, is in the A and B, C, D section, your capital letters. And then as the details become more nested, that's when we put things into the 1 and 2s. And look, this particular main point goes all the way down to little lowercase letters. This method uses trained testers. So all the information is nested together, but it all fits under this main point about the pleasure and pain, the spiciness of chili peppers. And this person did a better job, or with his second point, in making sure that the citation is more close to the beginning of the section. So capsaicin is concentrated in the pepper's veins and seeds, as P.W. Bosland states in the book Spices, Herbs, and Edible Fungi. The intensity of a chili pepper's power can be measured in 2 ways. And you list the 2 ways and they nest under that particular point, the subpoint. First method, oh look, and if we're going to talk about the method, that gets nested under the 1. The most widely used measure today is the high performance liquid chromatography test. You can tell this was not my speech, called the HPLC. And we have information about that test too. And that information is nested right underneath the 2. So make sure that all the information sticks with the points and subpoints that it's about. Hope that makes sense when I say that. If it doesn't, contact me, we'll work you through it. So then we have an actual C and a D as well. And because all of this information came from the same place, this P.W. Bosland's book, Spices, Herbs, and Edible Fungi, that's the citation we need for this whole section. It kind of works for everything. You don't have to repeat it. Now, if we take information from this book and we use it in a different point, we can bring it up again. You know, we can say, going back to P.W. Bosland's book, he says this, da, 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 da. So our main point number 3, about what happens if you get in touch with spice, the spicy reactive agent from a spicy pepper. You should know how to counteract its effects. Now, notice in this case, we really didn't put a transition between the main point 2 and the main point 3. That's because these main points are kind of related. One is about why they're spicy. The second one is what you should do if you come into contact with a hot pepper and the spiciness. So in that case, we didn't really need a transition to take us from one point to the other. We could just go from one to the other. But notice from 3 to 4, because we're going from information about what to do if you contact a spicy pepper. And then the 4th is about the way that chili peppers are used apart from eating. They're both about chili peppers, but they're about different things about chili peppers. So we're going to use another transition sentence in the same way that we used above. So we've got our main point 3, our subpoints A and B, our subpoints 1 and 2. The outline keeps going. Everything you mean to say goes into the outline until we get to the conclusion. Ta-da! And that's labeled as well. We're going to outline the conclusion like we did the introduction, and that pretty much every sentence is a main point. Once again, we start with our 1, 2, and 3 again. Remember, with our closing, basically we sum up everything that we've said coming before. We leave the audience on a high note, interested in what we've talked about. In closing, we signal that we're closing. It's difficult to imagine our lives without the spice added by chili peppers. From their origins in South America to the current popularity around the world, they've been used not only to flavor our food, but also to improve our health and our personal safety, which, remember, we talked about all of those things in our speech. Then we leave them with a to-go sentence. While it remains to be seen whether peppers can actually cure baldness, we can be sure this ancient plant will continue to find new uses in our modern age. Now, if I showed you back in the section 4 where we talk about baldness, we did include information about that. So that's actually kind of this little humorous bit that kind of takes us back to something we mentioned earlier. After the conclusion, we have the bibliography. Now, when you're giving your speech, you will not mention the bibliography. It's only a part of your presentation or your preparation outline. And as we see, the bibliography goes here. Unfortunately, I did not save Bob's, so I don't have it there, but it would be listed according to MLA citations. All of these people and their works, their books, their magazines, whatever, everything that was cited in the speech needs a listing in the bibliography. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So by the time you're done writing your preparation outline, it will look like this. And it will be pages long, because if you're writing out your speech, it's going to take up space, especially if you're outlining it in this way. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why do we have to outline a speech? Why? Because honestly, when most people just start writing a speech out, and if you're just writing it longhand the way that your brain is telling you to do it, you're going to come up with a jumble that you're eventually going to have to organize. So why not just start it with the organization? You know, what is my speech about? What's my purpose of my speech? That dictates my central idea. Hey, here's my central idea. Based on the research that I've done, here are the points that I'm wanting to talk about in my speech. Boom, 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 boom. Those are all my main points. Let's flesh those out with my supportive materials, all my sub points, my sub points, ding, 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 ding. Put those through your outline, stick in your introduction, finish with the conclusion. Everything is organized and it's written at the same time. So rather than just flooding a page with a whole bunch of stuff and then having to go back and go, okay, you know, just start organizing from the start. It'll make it so much easier. Trust me, every time I teach this class, I have students who try to do it the other way. They just write it and then they try to make it fit an outline, and it kind of works. But the students who actually start with the framework, with the outline, putting the information in as they write it, it's so much easier to do. And honestly, if you're writing papers in the future, this is the way to do that too. It's a helpful hint. If you're writing any kind of paper, scientific, English, history paper, write it according to an outline, and then take all the Roman numerals and stuff out, put the sentences all together, bada bing, bada boom. It's well organized, it flows well, and your professors will be like, that was a very well organized paper. I appreciate that. Trust me, I'm serious. So I'm going to put a link to this document on our Moodle page. So if you want to use it as kind of a model for what your preparation outline will look like, you certainly can. Nobody is going to do a speech about chili peppers. If I see any speeches about chili peppers, and strangely enough, they have these same main points, it's goose egg time. So no speeches about chili peppers. All right, let me put our presentation back up. Where are we at? There we go. So our preparation outline is putting our speech all together, sentence by sentence, point by point, fitting in all the sub points and the sub points underneath. Remember, our speaking outline then is basically going to be a much shorter and much more abbreviated list of phrases and hints that we can use to give our speech. Using that preparation outline, You can practice and practice and practice so that all you need are just little phrases and hints to take you through the actual presentation. Speaking outlines, only you're going to see them. So they can be on note cards, they can be on folded paper. However, you can hold them in your hand if you need to, put them on a lectern if you're going to be out in front of people. Perfectly good. You don't want full sheets of paper because honestly, that's a lot to deal with, turning pages, stuff, note cards are perfectly good. You will not turn those into me. I do not care about your speaking outline. It's good to use one. You do not have to turn it into me, only the preparation outline. Whoops. There we go. You do not want to write your whole speech onto your note cards or your folded paper. You will not fool anybody by, oh, I didn't practice my speech enough. Well, if I just write it on these note cards, all I'll need to do is this, and nobody will be the wiser. We'll all be the wiser. It is so easy to tell when somebody is reading straight from their notes. Why? Because one, they sound like they're reading. And trust me, you will notice this too. When we're watching people give their speeches, even if it's a video version, people will sound like they're reading their speech. But then you do get this kind of thing. You tend to lose the eye contact because they're paying way more attention to their notes than they are to the audience. If you practice enough, you can transfer your attention to the audience into you're actually giving the speech rather than to your notes. The notes are there in case you need them. Okay, that makes sense. Sometimes you'll put little hints in the margins next to a phrase to kind of help you with delivery. And we're going to talk about delivery coming up very soon. In fact, today, maybe if you want to emphasize a certain word or a phrase, you might want to underline things, or louder here, softer here, faster here, slow down here. Sometimes by the end of your speech, we tend to get caught up in what we're saying, and it tends to make us faster and faster, and we tend to blah, 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 you're just verbally flowing. You might need to write in your speaking outline, slow down, take a breath, make yourself calm down, give yourself little pep talk hints. That's perfectly good. Remember I said we're going to talk about delivery? Ta-da! There it is. Delivery is one of the most fun parts of public speaking because it's one of the most understandable parts of public speaking. Delivery involves all the forms of nonverbal communication we use when we're speaking, whether it's public speaking or conversational speaking. So even when you're talking to a friend or a parent or a teacher, how you carry yourself, all of the cues that you give through your body, through your face, through your vocal style, that really helps to convey the message. Not only the words, but how your body helps bring that message out too. And delivery is a very important part of giving an effective public speech. Remember I talked about reading a speech? That's called a manuscript speech. And it does happen, especially like, let's say I'm the president and I have to give a 30-minute speech. And, my speech writers wrote it with me, so I have most of the points, but honestly, that's a really tough speech to give. That's going to be a manuscript speech. Now, they get away with it because they use a teleprompter, which I wish we had, we don't. But a teleprompter is basically having a monitor in front that kind of the camera looks through. The words go up as I read them. They keep going up, and all I have to do is read the words as they go by. If you ever watch the president give a speech, you'll see these glass looking things in front that look totally clear. And to you, they'll be clear. To the president, or whoever's reading them, the words of his speech are going right up there. Sometimes it sounds like they are reading it because they have to be very precise about the words they use. Sometimes if a slip of a word when it comes to world politics is not a good thing. So they have to make sure every word is proper. So that's kind of fine if you're going to read a speech that way. Plus, they have so much experience public speaking, they can make a manuscript speech sound good. So good delivery can really help with reading a speech, that manuscript speech, to be more interesting. But if your delivery is not as practiced as a world famous politician or someone who does a lot of public speaking, it really can sound like you're reading. It can come across as mechanical, and that's all conveyed in your delivery. The fact that you're not prepared will be reflected in your delivery. People can tell a mile away if you're not prepared because of your vocal style or your gestures or the fact that you're not giving any eye contact. That's all part of the situation. When we talk about impromptu speaking, remember we talked about that a couple weeks ago. That's where you give a speech right off the top of your head. Your delivery can help make you sound focused, not like you actually got this topic 2 or 3 minutes ago and have to speak about it. If you can kind of perk yourself up, lean into people, give some good eye contact, act confident, that helps with your delivery. However, if you're not practiced at impromptu speaking and you have difficulty faking it until you make it, your delivery can be a hindrance so that it sounds unrehearsed and that you're struggling to put the sentences together. Now, when we're talking about our speeches, which are extemporaneous, I don't know why we got this one again. There we go. When we're talking about extemporaneous speeches, remember those are the speeches that you will write the outline for. You practice them in advance so that it comes across as a practiced, rehearsed, planned speech. Your practiced delivery can be rehearsed to feel conversational and interesting. But, you want to make sure that you're practicing with a good, confident delivery. And you use that speaking outline. It can help with your memory, helping you feel even more confident. So extemporaneous speeches, you've hopefully practiced, you've written your outline, you are ready to go, you're rested, you are rehearsed, you can jump forward, and you want to make sure your delivery conveys the fact that, yes, I'm prepared, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm interested in this, and really you should be too. And that all comes from your delivery. Vocal qualities can convey quite a lot in a speech. There are so many things to consider. These are just a few, but they are things that when you're practicing your speech, I want you to think about. The volume of your speech. If you're not confident in speaking, and if you're not used to it, if you're really not somebody who speaks up in a social situation, even, you might just have a really low speaking voice and your volume might be very quiet because we haven't developed the experience that would give us confidence to have more volume in our speech. If you're quiet, it does sometimes, even if you're super prepared, you could be, I know everything front and back, I know all of my notes, I have my outline put super together, but if people can't hear you, you're still going to have a problem. So we do want you to make sure you can supply a good enough volume for the situation at hand. Remember, we talked about speech communication process, and sometimes when you're out in public, you have to make yourself heard. So sometimes you're going to give a speech and you will have to vocally build the volume so that people can hear you. That's another aspect of working with your volume. The pitch of your voice can also be extremely important. If you're not used to public speaking and you're not used to telling a story and making it interesting by using inflection in your voice, making your vocal tone go up and making it go down. If you tell a story to kids, you use rhythm, you use higher pitch and you use lower pitch, and you make the story move along by that inflection. You would never tell a story doing monotone. So today I'm here to talk about chili peppers and why they're so spicy, and the history is really interesting too. If you don't sound interested in your speech, nobody else is going to think your speech is interesting either. So you need to use that inflection that really tells the story like you were telling it to your kids, and gets them interested in it. You know, when I talk to you in these videos, but also in class, I try to use a variety of vocal inflection so that I can keep you with me. Because if I'm talking to you for an hour or 2 hours, I need to pull you along with me, and I need to make my voice interesting enough that you'll want to listen to it for an hour or 2 hours. Now, luckily, you don't have to do your speeches for nearly that long, but I do want you to use good inflection. The rate of speech. Sometimes when we get nervous, our speech speeds up and we start talking really quickly, and it's hard for people to understand what we're talking about. Now, in some speeches, that can be a device. You know, if we're talking about something that's so quick and panicky and whatever, you might speed up the rate of speech just to kind of emphasize what you're talking about. But more often, if people speed up, it's because they're nervous and they just really want to finish the speech. Watch the rate of your speech. Watch the rate of your voice. You don't want to be so slow that you sound like a turtle giving a speech, but you do want to have a calm, relaxed, professional presentation. So not too fast, not too slow. Pauses are a fun topic to talk about in delivery because you can use pauses to really good effect. Sometimes a little dose of silence after a particularly interesting point can get people to go, ooh, that was interesting. Just give them a little moment to think about it, and then you move on. Pauses are cool. They can also signal unpreparedness. And I just said a vocalized pause. A vocalized pause is a space where you're trying to think of what you're going to say next, and you vocalize something that says, this is a pause, like or like or you know. If you know is also a vocalized pause in a way. Anything you're going to use to kind of fill a pause, to stretch for time with a sound or a word, that's a vocalized pause. I'm not going to count off if you do 1 or 2, because sometimes your brain just goes poof. And while you're trying to get your information back in order and you're looking down at your speaking outline, hopefully you might go, and then you jump right back into it. That's fine. It happens to everybody, like I just did. But if every sentence at the end you're like, and this, and well, that, and it basically tells me you're really struggling to think of what comes next in your speech. You haven't practiced enough, and it's going to be a problem. People get bored really easy with all the ums and likes and oh and you know, whatever. So it is going to be something to work on. I'm not saying that you will be perfect at avoiding vocalized pauses at the end of this course, because it is something people have to work on throughout their lives. Whenever I give a speech, I have to make sure I'm not saying and this and well that, and yeah, I have to really focus so that if I do give a pause, it's for effect and not I'm trying to think of what I'm saying and let's not throw an in there. So pauses can be used positively, but we want to not use them too often. We want to be so practiced and prepared. All the sentences just flow into our brains, and we're not going to go, next point like that. So this is a process. We're all working together. Trust me. When all of these vocal qualities come into play, and we vary our volume, we vary our inflection, we vary the rate of speech that we're using, we maybe throw in some pauses, that's called using vocal variety. And that's what we're aiming for. It really makes your speech giving interesting when you have a varied vocal quality. We don't want to be one rate of speech, one monotone level, quiet, not even a variance of volume. Nobody wants to listen to this for a minute, much less 4 to 6 minutes for your speech. It's going to be dull, and I'm going to write dull on your review, and we're going to have to work on it for the next 2 speeches. So when you practice your vocal qualities. Don't just practice the words, but practice how you're going to say them and how you're going to say them in a way that's going to inspire interest. So when you're speaking the words, not just having our voice concepts, but the actual words that we're going to use. There's some things we need to watch for as well. Pronunciation. We want to make sure the words that you use, you know how to pronounce. And this happens every single time, where you will learn a new word in the course of researching whatever your topic is for your speech. And that's awesome. But instead of, hey, there's a new word, let's see how it's pronounced, and actually looking it up, you'll kind of sound through it. And that sounds like it works to me, and it's not pronounced that way. Now you might think, who's going to know? Nobody. Somebody in your audience will know. And the minute you mispronounce it, they're going to go, they pronounced that wrong. And it's going to throw people off. It totally does. It does that to me all the time. And not just in classes like this, but I'll just be watching someone's speech and they pronounce the name of a country wrong. And I'm going to be like, well, shoot, if you messed that up, how can I trust that you know all your other details? This just kind of shows me you don't know kind of what you're talking about. So you want to make sure all the words in your speech, you know how to say properly. You want to make sure that you pronounce them all correctly. Secondly, we need to make sure you articulate your words well. If you're not used to speaking publicly, and in your social group, you kind of talk slowly, or you tend to slur your words together if all your friends know what you're talking about, and you kind of become lazy with your speech, that's perfectly good in your social speech. You don't want to give a speech that way. One, because after a while, it does get hard to listen to. Two, because articulated speech does come across as more polished and professional. Now, moving into dialect. Dialect is a particular way of speaking that reflects upon your culture, your heritage, your upbringing, your background. There is nothing wrong with dialected speech. I have heard many a Southern boy, Southern girl give a speech on a complicated scientific topic, and they have a really thick Southern accent. What they would do, even though they used a particular dialect, particular vernacular, is make sure that their delivery is such, and make sure that their information is so good that despite, the fact that they have a really thick accent, you totally trust what they're saying. So if you have a particular dialect, a particular speaking style that comes from your background, the way you were raised, that's fine. I don't want you to lose that quality from your voice. In fact, it helps to make your speech more interesting. Want to make sure, though, you articulate your words so we understand what you're saying. And two, want to make sure that the rest of your speech, your delivery, is spot on, so that not only will we go, well, that was a really interesting way to give that speech. Their vocal style was so good, and their dialect is really interesting. Having a particular dialect, a lot of people will say, oh, you need to lose that accent, or you need to lose that type of speech. I'm not one of those people. I think that's part of who you are. I don't want you to lose that. I just want you to be the best public speaker you can be. Keep that, polish it up, and make it good, so that when people hear you, they might go, oh, they have an interesting accent. But then they focus on your words, they focus on what you're talking about, and it's not such a thing, if that makes sense. So I hope it does. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact me. So we've talked about our voice, we talked about the words and how we're going to pronounce them, that we're going to articulate them well. Delivery also involves your physical body. Ta-da! Your voice does not act in a vacuum, and how you hold yourself, how you present yourself physically can do a lot for whether or not people pay attention to your speech, and even if they believe what you're saying. A whole lot needs to be considered when we're talking about your body and delivery. Your appearance. You want to dress and style yourself in a way that's appropriate for the occasion. I know you've seen politicians, when they're in a special, world summit meeting, they're all wearing very nice suits. The women all have their hair styled. Everyone is polished to within an inch of their lives. And when they're on the campaign trail, they all go to state fairs where they all wear like a button-down shirt. And the women might wear a jaunty scarf that makes them look professional, yet more relaxed. Because you would never wear like a full three-piece suit to a county fair. But because they are still trying to appear professional, knowledgeable, they're not going to wear like overalls and a t-shirt. They're still going to be appropriate to their position, but they would dress, for the job they want and for the job they have, but it has to be appropriate to the situation. In our case, for our class, no t-shirts, please. I want you to dress nicely. Collared shirt or a nice, blouse. For men, if you have blouses, whatever, you can wear a button down. If you want to wear a jacket and tie, awesome, but you don't have to. Women, you're making your presentation to our class and need to show respect. So try to make yourself look interesting and interested in what you're talking about. Have you thought about going, for example, to a job interview? It's kind of the same thing. When you give a job interview, you're kind of doing public speaking to new people about why you need that job, and you want to put your best foot forward. So you're going to dress for that situation. With our public speeches, you kind of want to do the same thing. Now, I'm not going to make you wear a suit, but I do want to make you be respectful and as professional as you can be for our class. When we're talking about movement, we're talking about how your whole body is oriented. When you're giving a standing speech and you're in person, some people will just stand behind a lectern and they won't move at all, and they'll face one direction the whole time. And that gets mostly dull. And if your audience is all kind of scattered around you, or, all in front of you, to the left, to the middle, and to the right, and you're only focused on this group, the people on the edges can sometimes feel left out. So what good speakers tend to do is step out away from the podium. And then what they do is they turn towards the various groups in the audience while they speak. Now, sometimes you can tell that they're doing this because they do this left, center, right, center thing. And then you do it again all through your speech. You don't have to do that much, but just make sure you're orienting yourself to everybody as casually as you would like. Helps everybody feel like you're speaking to them. And it helps to give a more conversational feel to your speech. You're not just rigid, standing there looking straight forward. There might be occasions where you do want to be very serious and very rigid, but even in those cases, you do want to make sure you're kind of looking towards the people throughout your audience. Gestures, things that you do with your hands and your arms and your head. If you ever have a visual aid, you can use your hands. I know this always reminds me of Talladega Nights, where Ricky Bobby's being interviewed on television. He's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. The first time you start doing public speaking, you're going to feel like that. You're going to feel like, I need to do something with my hands, but I don't know what. If you're speaking to someone casually, sometimes your hands will just move and naturally. Do that. Part of the good thing about our particular situation is you will be holding your note cards in one hand. So, that gives you something to do with one hand. Nonetheless, practice your speech so that you get confident with it, and then just kind of let go. Be relaxed about it. If you're talking to these people, use your hands, but don't force it. Don't force, don't be Ricky Bobby. Oh, my hands have to do something. Relax. Sometimes you can use your head in a way that can gesture to things. Make sure it's natural, but loosen up, let your hands, talk for you a little bit. Eye contact is really important when it comes to your delivery. Like I said, if you're always looking down at your notes because you feel weird looking at people, that's not going to work. People want to see your eyes. They want to engage with you. And that's how we engage with people apart from our voices, is through our eyes. When you're talking to someone, you look them in the eye, right? We want to feel like you're talking to us. So we want you to look at us in the eye. And that's one of the reasons why we look to all the parts of the audience, so we can look people in the eyes. Now, I don't think you have to look at everybody's eyes, because you can't do that. But pick somebody in the audience. If you have a friend, hey, I'm gonna look at them. If there's somebody over here, I'm gonna look at that guy. Over here, I'm gonna look at that guy. The people in the different sections, it'll still look like you're looking at them, but just pick out one person, one person, one person. You know, eye contact can really make a big difference in how people receive your speech and building that connection with them. Now, having said all that, our first speech is going to be given online, and a lot of people nowadays do give speeches online. So there are a couple of things you do a little differently to make it work, so to speak, with your delivery in an online situation. All right. Now, I've already talked to you a little bit about how to orient yourself in the frame that you're going to be giving your speech. If you see me right now, this is what's called a head and shoulder shot, because head, shoulders. You're looking like, you know, a newsreader on the nightly news, basically. This is a good way to orient yourself. Sometimes you'll want to give a speech so your whole body is shown. If you're, for example, demonstrating something and you need to show your whole body, that's okay. Otherwise, you really want to set yourself up so that we can see your head and your shoulders. This means you're not too close and you're not too far away. It also means we're going to be able to hear you through the microphone better. But I know y'all have been on Zoom or Teams meetings where people are just off and you can't even look at them. So if someone is like this, you know, hello, today I'm going to be talking to you about chili peppers. I'm sorry, too close. Nobody wants to see this, because it feels like you're close. I mean, you're looking at a screen, but you can't watch this in a speech. Nonetheless, you know, I might be, if I'm scooched back, I'm like, you know what, that camera bothers me. I'm gonna be back here. And you can see my head and shoulders, but look, everything around me is so distracting. And I need, basically, I wanna make myself the focus of this speech. I don't want me to be caught up in everything around me. I want myself to stand out. Then you don't want to be off center. Hi, today I'm talking about chili peppers because honestly, people are going to look at that and be like, I'm too distracted. Do they not know that they're off center? Do they not know? You don't want to be like, see if I can do this, like this. Today I'm here to talk to you about chili peppers. You know, I want you to be centered. How's that? Head and shoulders. If you can do this, you'll make me happy. The hard thing, and we've talked about this before, I'm going to say it a million times, is to look at the camera and not at your screen. If I look at my screen right now and I'm reading my PowerPoint, head and shoulders versus whole body, look at the camera, not at the screen. You can see I'm not, the eye contact is not happening. You want to see my eyes. It's like if we were speaking in public and we were all facing each other. You want to see my eyes. The only way people are going to see your eyes is if you're looking at the camera. You can still have your notes and look down and look up, but keep as much as possible looking at the camera. I know having a big screen in front of you wants to take your attention. This is going to take practice. It takes practice, but luckily that's what this whole class is about, is practicing doing better. So honestly, after this class, if you all have to make a speech or present in an online fashion, y'all are gonna be so used to looking right at the camera, your teacher's gonna go, they were spot on. They looked right in that camera. They knew exactly what they were talking about. It gives you better presence. I'll say that. You can still use your speaking outline, and pretty much, you know, people are not going to see it. Like if I have my little note here, you know, all I have to do is kind of like this and keep, and if I need to look at it, just look down. There it is. Still want you to dress and give as good delivery as if you were in person. Go ahead, use your arms, you know, talk as conversationally yet professionally as you like to do. Keep the interest going. You know, you can't see my hands, but you can see that I'm moving and that I'm interested in what I'm talking about. And that does go a long way. You know, when I said you want to dress for the occasion, in this case, you're not going to see anything from below my shoulders. So if you're wearing shorts, I'm not going to know, but at least the top of you should look nice. Okay. And this is one of the things that it's kind of a thing about people who work in news, or nowadays it happens to anybody who presents online. You know, they're always wearing shorts or, you know, sweatpants below the waist. If you ever go visit people in a news studio, sometimes the anchors are going to be wearing pants, nice pants, but a lot of times, you know, they're nice up here and the bottom is kind of, I will say though, since they started bringing anchors outside of an anchor desk, they now have to dress more nicely. So ha to them. All right, continue with delivery. Have I mentioned that you need to practice? The best way to really build a good delivery is to practice it, and do even more practice. So once you get your preparation outline all worked out, all the sentences of your speech put together, use it to practice, and practice. And you're going to listen to how you do. And you're going to say, okay, this part I think sounds great. This part, I don't sound like I know so much, so I maybe need to think about that. Listen, review how you do. It is the most important thing you can do to improve. And I'll tell you right now, we will have students who will not practice and they will just basically have their preparation outline in front of them when they do their speech, and you will totally be able to tell, even though it's recorded on video. Now, does this mean you don't turn it in, turn something in, don't give yourself a big 0, but we'll all know that you didn't practice and that you're reading your speech off of your preparation outline. It's just how it's going to be. When you're practicing, watch yourself in a mirror. See how you move. See if you look rigid or if you look relaxed. Listen to your voice. Shoot a video of yourself practicing and then watch it and go, okay, do I sound good? Would I be interested in listening to me? And then sometimes, and this used to happen before we did everything on computers, you'd put together your friends or your family as a test audience and you would practice your speech in front of them so that when they reacted, you can see how you react to their reactions. You get that feedback. Remember, we talked about feedback, and that does help. Sometimes if you're giving a speech and you only give it to yourself in a mirror, you see yourself, when you go in front of a live audience, it can throw you. You know, oh, they reacted to this. I'm not prepared for that because I didn't practice that. Practice in front of people, and it really will help you with regards to what you can expect from them, feedback wise, how you can adjust to whatever you hear. If you're looking at people and they're like this, you know, you can try to make your vocal variety pick things up a little bit. Then you can look and see, is it helping? Is it hurting? You know, you can adjust how you give your speech according to how you see the people in your audience reacting. Whew. Well, that's all we're talking about in our lesson plan for today. So hopefully all that made sense. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Hopefully, like I said, you watched this video before you took your test 1. So talking about test 1, you have to take it before Sunday at 11:59 p.m. At that point, the door shuts and that's it. Remember, this is a test about the terms. I want to make sure you understand everything we're talking about. So that long list of terms we talked about on Tuesday, make sure you understand the definitions of all the terms and what they mean, how they're used. You get one shot at this test. This is not one that you can think about later and go, I think I got that wrong. Let me see if I can go back in the test. No, once you open it up, it's a timed test. Once you're done, you hit that submit button, and please hit the submit button. We do have folks who are still not turning in assignments because they upload something, but then they don't hit the submit button. hit submit. Make sure you're done. Okay. But once that happens, that door shuts and it's all good. So don't submit until you know all of your answers you're happy with. Now your informative speech assignment. Hopefully you paid attention on Tuesday that we are changing the date that they are due. Hallelujah. Looked at the schedule and was like, you know what? I'm going to give them a couple more days. I want to make sure you got your best effort going. So they are now due, remember, at 11:59 p.m. Thursday, April 22nd. So next Thursday, the 22nd, you're going to turn in, actually, let's go through my bullets right there. You're going to record your speech and then you're going to post it to your YouTube channel. Remember, you're supposed to build your YouTube channel. It's not hard to do. Let me know if you're having difficulty. So you're going to record it using your phone. If your computer has a camera. Here is a lovely, helpful hint. If you make a major mistake in the middle of it, don't just keep going. Go back, do it again. I'm not going to know how many times you did it. Give it your best shot. Turn in your best piece of material. Now, I know this will happen. You'll get to like the very end and then you'll flub something and it's going to make you insane. Just do it again. It's fine. Like I said, put forward your best effort. Make sure your speech is between 4 and 6 minutes long. Time it. Use your stopwatch on your phone. Use an actual stopwatch. Use a timer. Use Alexa. I don't care how you do it. Just no more than 6 minutes because we can't listen to a whole bunch of 10-minute speeches right now. But it has to be at least 4 minutes long. What you're going to turn in after you've uploaded your recorded speech to your YouTube channel, you're going to turn in the presentation outline. Remember, at the top of your presentation outline, under your name and everything, you're going to put the YouTube link address. Then the rest of your preparation outline will follow right under that. You're going to turn in the whole thing, make sure all the sections are in it, from the specific purpose, your central idea, your introduction, all of your main points in the body, your conclusion, and the bibliography. I am posting up a link to that sample preparation outline. So if you kind of want to see it again, it's right there, but your book has a lot of examples as well. So if you don't believe me, take a look at the book. Hopefully everybody's got the right book by now. I think that is all for now. So let me stop sharing. That was a lot of information. Like I said, we are halfway through the course, which we have so much to cover in the next 5 weeks. But trust me, hold my hand. We will get through this all together. And I have full faith that all of you will do an amazing job moving forward. Reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. I am happy to help. So, like I said, stop watching the video, do a little extra studying, take your test, and I will see you on Tuesday. Ciao.